Today's quality is the quality of purity. The Sanskrit word for this is Sucih. And in the previous sessions, we've been talking about qualities such as contentment, qualities about free from want. Sucih is a unique quality because, like with many of the qualities, there is the state element where it's absolute, so absolute purity, and there is also where it's used as a practice. It's a practice to get to the absolute. With this quality, when we talk about being pure, it means the absence of impurity, the absence of dirt, the absence of any stain. So to the extent something is pure, there is nothing other than that which is supposed to be there than that. So if we say pure gold, to the extent there are other metals there or anything else, to that extent the gold is impure or pure. With respect to the spiritual path, the only thing that is meant to be there is your spirit, is yourself, is your full cognizance of that. Now, when we don't know this, when we don't know the spirit, when we've lost touch of it, when we've lost touch of reality, that's when the impurity comes in. And that's the ignorance. And the ignorance is substantiated or is expressed as the ego and egocentric desires. So what is the impurities on the pure, stainless self? It is ego and egocentric desires. To the extent our ego plays up, to the extent our egocentric desires run amok in the world, causing us all sorts of headaches, dramas and traumas, attachments and heartbreaks, to that extent, we are impure. Sucih is the quality of removing and reducing the ego. It's dissolving the ego and egocentric desires. But it envisages a constant awareness of the impurity. So we're looking out for the dirt. We're looking out for the areas of ego, the areas of egocentric desires, the areas of our attachments. We're looking out for this with the endeavor to remove it. Now, this does not mean that this person has OCD, that they are obsessive, that they are intolerant of any imperfection. That's not the idea. It's a lifelong commitment to refinement, to unfoldment, to realizing the self. So whereas other qualities that we have studied had the association of being complete, of being whole, content, here, what is the effort? The effort is to be aware of the impurity, aware of the dirt, and remove it. At the absolute state, the only dirt is the ego and egocentric desire, which is a lot. So there's a lot of work to do. But we're also going to discuss the relative aspects. In the picture of Lord Krishna, do any of you know what instrument Lord Krishna plays?
The flute.
Plays the flute. Okay. And it's the flute that is wooden. And the one thing that you notice about the flute is that it's hollow. And remember, it is not the personal details of Lord Krishna that we look for. It is through the stories and the life and the way they use symbolism that from the picture we depict the message. So from the picture of Krishna playing the flute, why the flute? It's a hollow instrument. Similarly, when one has cleansed oneself of ego and egocentric desire, whatever you're designed for, whatever you're meant for, whatever is your nature, you play that beautifully, you're in harmony, you're in accordance to nature. It's as if your self spirit sings, as it were, expresses, as it were, a divinity, a music of the universe. And this is symbolized by Krishna playing the flute. So it's divinity expressing through the beautiful notes of the hollow flute. Jesus Christ says something similar. Empty thyself and I shall fill thee. Empty thyself of what? Empty thyself of ego and egocentric desire. And I shall fill thee. Divinity flows through. So divinity is always there. That thou art. You are the spirit, you are the self. All we're doing is removing the ignorance, removing the obstacles. Sunlight is already there, it's ever present. What we're doing is we're removing the roof, the barrier. The sunlight shines through. Divinity you are. And to the extent that you have a detox, desire detox, you have a cleanse, to that extent, you express the self, the spirit. Debbie recently shared about a musician that practices this philosophy. And many do it in their different art forms. Karma yoga is one way of doing it. It's how you do it through work, through action. But here a musician, his name is Arvo Pärt. And Arvo Pärt, he says that the way to produce beautiful music is not by focusing on the music, but by focusing on that through which the music plays. So if you focus on the individual and you cleanse your soul, the soul, as it were, has a sound. And he says this: one must purify the soul until it begins to sound. A composer is a musical instrument and at the same time a performer on the instrument. But an instrument has to be in order to produce sound. One must start with that, not the music. So we never think of the person playing the instrument as an instrument in itself. So for you to play beautiful music of life, you've got to work on the instrument. That's you. Different people use the form of pottery. It could be archery. It could be your respective sport, your respective profession. But by refining yourself, you find perfection expressed externally. And this is the idea. Now, those who are set on finding the self, the spirit, on cleansing the soul, what does that mean? It means understanding that your real identity is the self, the spirit. And this false identity that we've claimed, that we've built, that we've worked on, this image, the false self, the temporary self, the one based on award, recognition, that's the ego. To the extent that you have started demolishing this false self and allowing the real self to come through, to that extent, you are pure. And this purity expresses also in the form of strength. Fear, insecurity, doubt, they come from the ego. Fullness, abundance, that comes from the self. Those who seek fullness or seek the spirit, the self, they become strong. There's a poem called Sir Galahad. And Galahad, he was the son of Sir Lancelot, so he was one of the knights, and he was given the responsibility for finding the Holy Grail. And the story goes that Sir Galahad, he was of such a pure disposition in terms of the way he conducted himself, the way he was so sincere about his goal, his pursuit for the higher, and the Holy Grail representing self-realization, the spirit. And in some literature, they say that he got a spiritual vision of it. He found it. He reached self-realization. But this is the interesting line that Sir Lord Alfred Tennyson writes about Sir Galahad. He says, "My strength is as the strength of 10 because my heart is pure." My strength is as the strength of 10 because my heart is pure. And this is it. What makes you weak? The ego. When you want something for yourself, that makes you weak. When you represent something larger, even at the relative level, when you represent the family, you get the strength of the family. When you represent the community, you get the strength of the community. There's a conviction in what you're saying and what you're asking. When you're giving a speech to maybe hundreds or even to a team, if you're thinking about yourself, you become insecure, you become self-conscious, you lack confidence. But when you are doing it for the benefit of the thousands, to pass on a message, you become energized. You become vitalized. This is it. This is the strength. And the strength comes from the purity. No otherness, no dilution, no clutter. The Indian version of this is Lord Hanuman. Who is Lord Hanuman? Anyone? So the Western version, the British version is Sir Galahad. But a person who's acclaimed to be as pure, as great a bhakta. Remember, we're studying the 35 qualities of a bhakta, a devotee of the spirit, of God. Who is Lord Hanuman?
God of strength.
Lord of health, okay.
Strength, I
Lord
said.
of strength, yes, that's it.
Devotee of
Exactly.
Lord Rama.
Devotee of Lord Rama. Lord Hanuman is depicted as a monkey god, in the sense literally a monkey man, but is known as the god of strength. And the reason why he is the god of strength is because of his unwavering devotion to Lord Rama. Lord Rama represents the truth, represents God, represents self-realization. Remember, it's symbolic. And when Lord Hanuman was being felicitated, so he was given a mala, something like this, but made with flowers. He took the mala and he held it up to his ear. And it did not say Ram, Ram, the Lord. It did not say the Lord. He said, no, thank you. And in that simple story, there's so much to absorb. And it is as long as something does not take you towards the self, the spirit. If it aggravates or if it consolidates your ego, do not accept it. Do not take it. Be single-pointed. Be pure. And from that purity comes strength. From that purity comes the next quality that we will study in our next session called daksha. Daksha means perfection in action. Beautiful action. In order to see the dirt within, and when we're talking about the dirt within, we were talking about the ignorance. Ignorance expresses in the form of vasanas, ego, egocentric desires. So, at the absolute level, the dirt is vasanas, ego, egocentric desires. So yes, we've got to examine those. But in order to see the dirt outside, we've got to start a little bit more practically, a little bit closer to the eye, what we can see. To go within, much more difficult to see. We can't see it. It needs inner eye, inner perception, reflection, insight. And that is why in spiritual discipline, external purity is highlighted as much as internal purity. Because if you cannot see the dirt outside, how can you see the dirt on your body? How can you see the dirt on your mind, on your intellect? And then the vasanas behind it, on the self, the spirit. So we've got to start. Just as if you were to go for an eye checkup to an ophthalmologist, you would no doubt, you've all had an eye test where they have the different letters. It looks like a pyramid. So the first row maybe has a letter or two. The second row goes smaller. And you have to read through it. And then you go D, C, J. Then they go to the next row. So it's getting smaller and smaller, finer and finer. You're all familiar with this chart, right? So it's going finer and finer. And you're looking for a trick. Maybe they're trying to trick you. But all they're doing is just going smaller. And then you get to the fourth row, and you're still quite confident. H, C, X, V, Y, D. Wow, great. Okay, great eyesight. Okay, close one eye, close the other eye. Then by the time you go to the fifth or the sixth row, suddenly the C's are looking like O's. And the B's and the D's are looking very similar. And the V's and the N's, you're not sure which one is which. And the next row, you can't read it. You can't see it clearly. Same thing. We can practice the quality of Sucih with outside. Attend to that. Practice there. Develop the eye for impurity. Remove it. Clean it. Come closer, closer, closer. So let's take a look at some of the ways we could practice the quality of Sucih, starting from outside, working in. Outside your immediate environment. What is your immediate environment like? And when we say dirt or when we say clean, it's relative. The more advanced, the more evolved we become, the keener our perception for dirt. So it seems contradictory, but the more evolved you become, the more dirt you see. But when you are not so evolved, you don't see the dirt as dirt. You don't see it. So where we can start practicing, because you can't borrow this insight, or perhaps you could walk with someone you believe has an insight for this kind of looking for dirt, who has that sensitivity. You could, but the whole idea is to develop it yourself. So you start with yourself, your environment. You look around. What does not need to be there? What is excess? What is, subtle question, is not serving any purpose in your life? Definitely not taking you to the self or the spirit. Remove it. Declutter. Cleanse. Where? Outside first. For those of you who've been to the academy, when you come, Dana, we are talking about the retreat. And for those of you who've been, Deepa, Sapna, you come to the academy and you come for a retreat. And one of the activities is campus cleanup. And campus cleanup means we all come together, students, and that time Swamiji as well, all of us, for an hour in the morning, instead of sport, we'll be out scrubbing the jogging track, cleaning the water drains, removing the leaves, raking, sometimes painting, somebody going around with the litter sticks. I said, why campus cleanup in a spiritual retreat? And, sometimes we joke, we're making the most of the extra labor. We've got more numbers, great, we'll clean up the campus. But it's not that. It is a spiritual activity. And the spiritual activity is keep our environment clean. Of course, there's also the element of cooperation. So a wonderful thing, some people have taken it back, and maybe once a fortnight, they do it as a family. They go around the house. They go through the cupboards with bin bags. What toys we don't need anymore? What books are we not using that we could donate? Same thing we can do. But the idea of it is you go around and you look at what is not in order. Maybe a tap that is leaking a little bit. Why isn't it attended to? A picture that is slightly off. How long have we left it? And again, we don't want to become obsessive about it, but the idea is to see it, and then when you have made the time for it, correct it, change it. There are so many areas to start with respect to the environment, but just a few ideas. And we learned this while we were traveling with Swamiji. Because people would ask, Swamiji, is there anything that we can do? Can we practice this Sucih quality? And we would go through sometimes the kitchen. And this is like with the host, because the host has prompted it. And they were saying, give us an example of this. And it would be just removing expired items from the kitchen, from the provisions cupboard, or items that you're not going to use, but somebody gave you a sauce from Puerto Rico, and somebody gave you a mayonnaise from France. And it's there in the fridge, it's there in one corner. First, is it expired? Second, are you really going to use it? If you're not going to use it, pass it on to somebody who might use it, or dispose. Then you can do the same exercise. You go into your cupboard and find out which item you've not used for the last year. Why are you accumulating? Get rid of it. Declutter. And it's not just that your environment looks better. You feel it here. Cleansing, lightness. It has a sound. It's a practice. It is a lightning that is coming from the unburdening of excess. Now, after the environment, what's next if we're working inwards?
Thoughts.
Oh, Preeti, you missed a step. What about the physical body? Your physical body. What does not need to be on this body? Are you carrying excess weight according to yourself? Is there something on this body that does not need to be there? It could be jewelry. And again, it's up to you what you see as clutter. Now, how much do we put on ourselves? How much time do we spend on the body? That is not taking us closer towards the self or the spirit. One of the disciplines we have at the academy, and again, you've got to customize it and personalize it for your spiritual discipline. But at the academy, the way we've standardized, we have standardized through everybody coming to the academy. For the gents, clean shaven. Because if you don't have a standardized short haircut, no ponytail, no long hair for the gents, if you don't have that standard, if you don't have that discipline, one day it'll be mustache, then going towards a goatee, then sideburns, then thick beard, light beard, neck beard. This is besides the self. Any otherness, any other thought that distracts you from the goal that you're pursuing is impure in that context. And this is why so many standardize. They standardize their clothes, so you don't have to spend thought on that which is not relevant. Then, moving inwards, we had, before we move on to the emotions and thoughts, we had one of our devotees, they sent their son to spend some time in the academy, hopefully wisen up, not the full 3-year course, just a visit. And along with the son called and said, can I bring my friend along? I don't think I'll last in the academy without a friend. We said, there are many people here you can make friends with. No, is it okay if I bring my friend? I said, okay, welcome, but as long as he knows what the academy is about. And the friend came along. And the friend had hair everywhere. We could not see the face. And Swamiji describes, or used to call him, the bear. Because we never knew what he looked like. And after some time, the boy who came as the devotee's son, he went back. He spent 2 weeks and he left. But the other young man who had hair everywhere, the bear, he slowly started removing some of the fur, the hair. So removed all the excess, had a haircut. Right? So then we could see the eyes. Just this part was there. Then remove this. Then join the course. And after a few months, lost all the excess kilos as well. Just following the schedule, jogging, eating, 3 meals a day, no snacks in between. Just cleansing. Removing what is not necessary. And when his parents came to visit the academy, they did not recognize him. And they started crying. Oh, you gave our son back to us. Cleanse, cleanse. So we've got to decide for ourselves. And that's why you find those who've committed on the spiritual path, how simply, and simple does not mean lack of sophistication. It is through very disciplined thinking, they've reached that particular type of clothes that they wear. It's from knowledge that they've decided. So they understand the world and that they've chosen, and it could be high quality, but it'll do its function perfectly. So anything for them that does not have a function, does not have a purpose in their life or in their spiritual path, removed. And that's why what you find among spiritual or truly people who are seeking the truth, how simple they are. This does not mean lack of appreciation for art, lack of appreciation of beautiful things. No, it is the lack of unnecessary. Moving inwards, we have the emotions. What kind of emotions do we entertain? What kind of emotions do we allow ourselves to indulge in? What kind of company? And one of the most practical ways to instill this quality of Sucih is, who are your friends? Who is the company that you keep? The Sanskrit word for it is satsang. Sat means truth, sang means company. Those who are in the company of your truth, align with that. Those who are taking you to where you want to go. There are some whose company you are in, they pull your thoughts lower. They have that influence. We're still susceptible. So our emotions go into that conversation topic. But it could also be pulled by a different type of company. I used to find it so amusing how people who are usually very loud and very much egoistic, when they come in the presence of Swamiji, become mice. So what just happened? Where did your personality go? And it's not that they are acting. It brings out a different part of them. So when you are with a spiritual person, or with a highly evolved person, you change. Or you find the better part of you being drawn out. That's what we want. That's what we want to look for. Or that's what we want to touch base with, because it shows us what we're capable of. It shows us the kind of emotions and happiness that we can experience. A good satsang is the academy. And I'd recommend those of you who are interested, those of you who are already doing the e-learning, are regular with your studies, plan a visit to the academy or in touch with somebody you believe has that spiritual frequency, positive frequency. Because when you're with that person or that environment, your frequency changes. And you want to hold on to that and take that back and make it a regular, periodic visit until you don't need it at all. You're that frequency naturally. In fact, you bring that frequency to others. But until then, make use of the environment. Touch base. So starting from tomorrow, we have the Vedanta Academy experience. So for 6 days, people from around the world, some who attend our class, are going to be there. And during that time, you're with a group who's coming from the world, who's in finance, who's in medical profession, who have families, but for that time, they're going to be soaked in this knowledge. Very little chance they're going to talk politics because the discussions are all centered around this. So even in the dining hall, when the lectures are not going on, it'll be about, tell me about your life. How did you get interested in Vedanta? What changes have you noticed? That's the quality of the conversation. And that brings your emotions to that level. Same thing with intellect. What thoughts do you engage in? So many use social media as a form of unwinding, as a form of recreation. But are we cognizant? And perhaps we are, but we're not cognizant of the time that we spend allowing that to influence our thoughts. So if social media is having a positive influence on you and you're aware of it, great. Is there a better way of getting it? Examine. But if it's having a negative influence, it's not giving you higher emotions, reduce it. This is with everything. Music, thoughts, what you read, what you bring in. And here, the intellectual discipline is, what thoughts are not necessary? An exercise that we have to write in the academy is we don't do exams where it's question and answer. The exams are summaries. Summarize what you've learned. This topic, this chapter. But it's not as easy as it sounds, because in a summary, you have to be very precise. If you leave out a point, it means you haven't understood. You've missed the point. But if you elaborate too much, it also means you haven't understood. You haven't got the point per se, or you've given too much. So you haven't understood the essence. So a summary is a great way to understand the essence of something. Intellectually, when we are trying to be clean, it is getting to the essence, removing the non-essentials. When we speak, is every line that you speak valid, valuable, useful, truthful, beneficial? This is at the intellectual level. Which thoughts are useful? Which thoughts are not useful? Which content useful? Which content not useful? Which words helpful? Which words not helpful? What an exercise. So if we look at our whole personality, but particularly our inner personality as a garden, and you are the gardener, deciding which are weeds, which should not be there, which destroy the garden, and which we should cultivate. James Allen puts it beautifully. He says, just as a gardener cultivates his plot, keeping it free from weeds and growing the flowers and fruits which he requires, so may a man tend the garden of his mind, weeding out all the wrong, useless, and impure thoughts, and cultivating toward perfection the flowers of right, useful, and pure thoughts. Think of your mind and intellect as a garden. Cultivate the pure, spiritual, rightful ones. Weed out those which cause you negative, impure. So this quality of Sucih, start with awareness. See the dirt outside, work on the inside. What we don't need, remove, declutter. The ego and egocentric desires and its attachments that follow from that. If you think of the ego as this octopus, so you've got the head, that's the ego, and all the tentacles connected that are centered around the egocentric desires and attachments, those are the different tentacles. They're all clouding the spirit, the self. We've got to work on that. A human being minus desires equals spirit. God plus desires equals a human being. What stops us from the spirit, from God, from knowing it fully, is the presence of the ego and egocentric desires. You remove that, divinity shines through. There's a word given called tejas. Tejas means a glow, a spiritual luster. And it doesn't literally mean a halo. It means that you are pure. You can feel it. Maybe you can see it, but it's not literally an outline glowing. It's an inner glow. That's the idea. Cleansing. So if you have any questions from this quality, please make a note. We've taken up a question that is very relevant in terms of what we've just covered. And the question of the week is on personalization. So I'll just put it up on the screen for you. The question of the week is, what is personalization?
City life.
How does one...
So maybe we need to go to look for some oasis out of the big city.
What is personalization? How does one combat it? Personalization is unnecessarily interfering with the involvement of your ego. You bring the ego into any situation, action, statement. How does one combat it? By removing the ego. But we'll give some practical steps for this. So first, what is personalization? So we make it personal. Now, when we say make it personal, that personal means it belongs to me. But who's the me that you are referring to? You're not referring to me, the self, the spirit. That's a very nice me. But the me that we are referring to is the false identity. Sudhakar, Dana, Shakila, me. We are referring to the personality and the idea of what belongs to that ego. Sudhakar's idea, my idea, me, myself, I, but all referring not to the self, the spirit, referring to the ego. How do we personalize? We personalize when we hear something, we perceive something, but we see it through the lens of ego. So we don't actually take just the statement per se. We take the statement and we add me, myself, I. You see two people talking in a room. As you walk in, they must be talking about me. How? No, they knew I was coming. Oh, they probably, as soon as I came, they started talking about me. It must be because of what happened last time. And we bring in that background of ego into the situation. It may be true. Most of the time, it's not true. And we create our own drama for something that was usually nothing to do with you. A person asks, another example of personalization. A person asks, why is this cup here? I didn't bring the cup. I had nothing to do with the cup. Are you answering the question? Why is this cup here? You can say, I know or I don't know. The cup is here because in case anybody wants some water, a cup is there. So either you know or you don't know, but unnecessarily we bring the I and me involved. We interpret it as if that person is asking, am I responsible for the cup being there? Is it a negative thing? It might be a positive thing, but we bring the ego in, personalize it, make a disaster out of it. And so often, if we were able to exercise the intellect at that moment and just pause, take the question per se, not read into the question, just take the question by itself. Maybe add a follow-up question if we haven't clearly understood to clarify. Drama averted. But the thing about the ego, it likes the spotlight. It likes the drama. It likes to sabotage our happiness. Because as long as the attention is on the ego, it's getting a negative pleasure, even though it causes you so much of misery. Don't feed it. You're receiving parcels that are not meant for you. But this is what the ego does. It thinks that every parcel, every statement is a message for me. How do we combat this? The way we can combat this is by looking at the facts. Instead of my assumption, my view, my opinion, remove the ego from the situation. Look at it factually. Two people are talking. Maybe about me, most likely may not be about me. Facts. When in the workplace, it's fascinating how people personalize. Emails. And they will read into emails something that is usually not there. Dear Asha. Oh my goodness, that was cold. Doesn't usually say dear, usually says hi. Oh, this is because of I didn't greet them properly yesterday in the corridor. And I hope this email finds you well. So you start analyzing and you start checking the language. And now even emojis, you can get into so much trouble with emojis, with text. I would say if you are feeling any emotion, don't put it on text, don't put it in writing at all. Because you have no idea how the other person reads into it, because people have the tendency to personalize. There's no context, there's no interpreter for it. There's no Vedanta teacher saying, remove the facts from the tone, from the assumption, from the interpretation. But this is what we should try and do. Look at the statements, look at the lines, look at the message of the email, of what the person is saying, and not react personally. Now that requires so much of detachment, so much of intellect, because, and this is the unholy combination, ego plus the mind. So imagine you're emotional and you're egoistic. This is the Titanic. How are you going to stop this? So that's where the intellect has to be that much stronger to pause, try and remove the emotion, look at the facts of the case, remove the egoistic bias, and then you see. And when you see, everything becomes clear. When you don't see, we make it worse. So, two ways we can use some tools to reduce our ego, to reduce the personalization. The first one is horizontal viewing. Horizontal viewing means you look at what you're going through right now, right? You've lost a member in your family, they've passed on, and the grief is unbearable. And you say, how did this happen to me? Why now? Why it seems like almost every few years when things are just about to stabilize, something happens to me. So horizontal viewing is you fix the time and you look throughout the world. How many people have lost somebody, not just this week, today? I am a person who has lost a family member. Millions have experienced that. What it does is, it brings that aggravated ego, it gives it perspective. And that impersonalization of it allows the emotion to not have such a sensitive, such a violent reaction. No doubt it will feel a loss, but the personalization adds fuel to it. Now, vertical viewing is when you fix the time and you go up and down and you look throughout history. So perhaps you do not do well in an exam. We have students who get so depressed, who even go to the extreme when they do not do well in exams. But if you look at it in the perspective of your whole life, imagine if you could go back and talk to your 15-year-old self. How important were those exams? What bearing, what reflection did it have on your life? How much stress could you have told yourself to remove? It's going to be okay. These exams are not the be-all, end-all of life. This is vertical view. When you look throughout history, throughout your lifespan, it comes into perspective. And Charlie Chaplin, he says, life is a tragedy when seen in close-up, but a comedy in long shot. So this horizontal and vertical viewing, what does it do? It gives us perspective. It helps us zoom out. But when we personalize, we make it a much bigger problem than it is. Arjuna, our protagonist in the Bhagavad Gita, he got himself into trouble because he personalized it. If he understood that this is just another battle, I must go out, claim my part, it would have been fine. But instead of that, he saw my relatives, my grandfather, my cousin that I used to play with. And because he made it all about himself, he wasn't able to keep his ego, to keep his minus aside, he crumbled. So when we talk about looking at it impersonally or just the facts, let us follow the advice of Edward Carpenter, where we try to look at ourselves as the third person. That's objectivity. Never before could I have believed it, but I see it all now. There is no happiness unless you have clean dropped thinking about yourself, but you must not do it by halves. While even there is the least grain of self left, it will spoil it all. You must just leave it all behind. And here's the advice. And vouchsafe the personality and mind that much sympathy as to any stranger. No more, so not exaggerated, but also no less. Doesn't mean that you must neglect yourself, but give it its due perspective. So impersonalization is when you look at yourself as just a person in a family, in a situation. What would I recommend this person do? What is the best way for this person to behave? And then you bring yourself back into it. Ah, okay, I could try that. But when you personalize it, you can't accept advice. You can't think clearly. Why? Because you're in it. The ego is taking up all the bandwidth. Take a step back. Impersonalize. So 3 methods to combat personalization. To combat the ego. To work towards Sucih, purity. Questions?
Sudhakar, I think Razia had raised her hand earlier. She may have a question.
Yes, Razia.
Hello. Hi, Sudhakar.
Hi.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, that's an interesting thing about personalization, how often we do that. And how often that can lead us into like a whole maze of thinking, you know? It starts off as a single thought and then suddenly it's like your whole head is full of thoughts. But yeah, that's so interesting. But yeah, what I wanted to ask you was, like lots of people say that you have to destroy the ego. But I don't think so. I don't think like you have to destroy it. I don't know if you like
Sure.
even Ramana, yeah, even Ramana, you know Maharishi, Maharishi, I don't know how to pronounce that. He also said like uh, it's like the burning the body, but the garment remains. You know that the ego cannot be destroyed because it's something that we still will use like later, like to chop wood and carry water, kind of a thing. I don't know if you agree.
So when people talk about destroying the ego
Yeah,
or dissolving the ego, the idea of that is that it is displacement. So it is where have you placed your identity? So at the moment, our identity is on the ego. We don't know anything else. We only know what we've built up. So we've got this identity of this individual, what our parents have called us from when we're young, what teachers have told us, what our upbringing, some parts of it we've consciously designed, we've made, and we are this effect of all these different inputs and outputs. That is Sudhakar, Dana, Anita.
yeah,
Now, when we're talking about moving towards the self or the spirit, it is understanding, first of all, that that is not our real identity. That's a temporary identity. It's just a mask, a facade that we've been using because it's convenient. So the more we learn about our real personality, we will find the accent on this ego reducing, reducing, reducing. To truly know your real identity, you have to let go fully at some point, not now. You can't do it overnight. You can't just drop it. Once you know it, it means you've let go of the old identity. So when people say that they have the sannyasis or the spiritual people of India, when they take up spiritual life, they wear ochre, orange robes. And what it means is that they've burnt their previous personality. And now they are enlightened. They're one with the self, the spirit. Their old ego is gone. It's not that easy. So you can't destroy it. You can't burn it. What can you do? You can realize your true identity. So
Yeah,
a
exactly.
little bit of knowledge, eating a little bit of ignorance. Lakshmi.
Thanks.
Hello, Arun. Hello, sir. Thank you for the nice topic today. So my question for today is, this is my own experience. I experience it daily. Whenever I go any place, maybe at work, I going in a wedding, people just attack you, say negative things, bad things. I don't know that person. I'll be frank with you. I think this is someone who is so much ego, someone I don't know, but criticizing, laughing at you. But I'm a really simple person in life. So I have experienced many bad experiences, but I'm learning daily to grow as a person. So sometimes I like to understand why people attack someone when they don't know the person real life and real life story experiences they have experienced. It's my own life experience and story I'm telling you, sir. Why it shows that people do this for other people, attacking their personalities, the person as a whole, and laughing, criticizing continuously. But I have given this as at many people in my life today. From negative, toxic, everything. I'm just learning to become my best version daily, sir. So why is it so, sir? I would like some tips from you.
Lakshmi,
Thank
the
you.
reason is, yeah, sure. The reason is that majority of people operate on the ego. And how the ego gets boosted is that when you criticize or when you talk negatively about somebody, what it does internally is you're pushing the idea of somebody down. So you're pushing that person down, and the effect of it is it boosts your ego. So when you push the other person down, the ego gets a boost. It gets a superiority kick. And that is why people indulge in this, because there is we called it a negative pleasure. The trouble is it causes so much of isolation, it causes so much of insecurity to that individual. So it's not that that individual will be happy, Lakshmi. But the reason why they do it is because it gives the ego a kick. It gives the ego a pleasure. They have not experienced the pleasure of absence of ego, what we are aspiring or what we're moving towards. And it's not destroying the ego, it is taking up the spirit, the identity, with all these wonderful qualities that we've been learning. So from our side, Lakshmi, is we must understand that everyone is at different stages on the path. Everyone's looking for pleasure, for happiness. Some are doing it in a way that hurts others, but it also hurts them. So they're not doing it in the most sensible way. Now, it is not our duty to go and lecture to everybody or try and change everyone who's not ready, but we do have a duty to ourselves. So we understand they may not be on the journey, but we are. So we focus on putting out positive things, positive thoughts, lifting others instead of putting others down.
So,
Okay,
Doctor,
Lakshmi?
can I ask a quick question?
Sure, Dana.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
How can we create balance between the physical and the spirit? And I know the ultimate purpose is self-realization, and which is 100% the spirit. But can we start with 50-50? which is 50 physical, 50 spirit, until we reach the 100% self-realization?
So it's not about proportions. It is about where is your thought. So if your thought is tending towards the spirit, you are spiritual. So you might be doing physical duties and taking care of physical responsibilities like work, like family, cleaning, etc. All the everyday things that each and every one of us has to do. But if your thought is for self-realization, you're doing all of this for self-realization, you are spiritual. It's not the place, it's not the activity that makes it spiritual, it's your thought. And therefore, there's no two worlds. For you, the idea is to make it one life, one world. But you've got to align your thought with your daily activities. So you can be spiritual in your work with your family. And that's the goal of it. So to the extent we can think about the spirit in and through what we do, to that extent, we're evolving.
Thank you, Sudhakar.
Okay, everyone. A few announcements. So for next Sunday, there will not be a session. We are going to be having for next week the Guru Purnima lecture. So it won't be on the same Sunday. It'll be just after that. It'll be on Tuesday, the 10th of July. Okay. I think it's, no, I'm not sure. It's Tuesday. Thursday, sorry. Thursday, the 10th of July. And it'll be the same time as this session. All right. So this is where the author of the books that we talk about, that we study, my guru, my direct guru and mentor, Swami Parthasarathy, will be screening a lecture called 3 Yogas to Meditation. So make a note of your questions from the lecture, and we will take it up the following Sunday. Please note, in July, besides this first Sunday, we will have lectures throughout. In August, there will not be any Sunday wisdom sessions. And in September, we continue with the lectures. Okay. So Hari Om, everyone.
Thank you so much, sir.
Sudhakar.